What if I were to tell you that there are ways to manipulate energy in your life that lead you to living the life you actually want to live, to manifesting, to creating your reality, and that these ways of manipulating energy, secret societies have known for generations, very few people have known, but have known and utilized to great effect in their life. And it's helped them, accomplish incredible feats, whether that's in the sciences, the arts, whether that's in building empires or building these huge corporations and titans of industry. They've used these principles of really knowing how energy works and manipulating it to make these things come to fruition. Now, you may not be interested in all of that, in many of the things that I listed, and it's personally not something I'm necessarily interested in, but if you are interested in living a life of joy and happiness, fulfillment, prosperity, and abundance, where you're having that on all planes, not just inwardly, but also having the physical result of that, then this is something in my eyes that's crucial to learn because it's going to help you to do this. Ultimately, learning how to manipulate energy, how to work with energy, is going to allow you to become a reality creator and create it in the way that you want. And I don't think it's coincidence that some of the most influential figures, some of the most successful figures in history and today know or knew how to do this in order to live the life they wanted to live, or again, to achieve incredible things. And many of them gained access to this information or were given it within these societies that just wasn't given to the public, which is why very few have made use of it. However, in recent history, a lot of this information has been leaked out, has been revealed by members of those societies, by people who have gone in and defected, or people who just under a pseudonym have given this information, and so it is more widely available than ever. And in this video, I'm going to be going over what some of this information is, and more importantly, how to apply it, because knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing, which is something people who are in these societies are very aware of. It's not enough just to have this information or to read it or to know about it. If you want it to work, you have to know it, you have to use it, and you have to keep it going. So let's jump into how you can do this, some techniques that will help you in being able to manipulate energy that you can work on that really work, and also a bit of the science and history of this as well. Now, before we jump into some of the techniques and tools that are going to help you to do this, we need to give a little bit of a background of how our reality actually works. Now, one of the founders of modern physics and quantum mechanics was Niels Bohr, and he actually received a Nobel Prize for his discoveries and research in 1922. And in his studies of subatomic events, which essentially just means events happening at a smaller level than the atomic level, he found that seemingly unrelated events actually contained an interconnectedness. So basically things we thought were random and things that we thought were not connected, he found at a deeper level are. So he and other physicists actually concluded that when an electron was not observed by a conscious observer, it actually remained an electron and didn't become a particle. But that when it was observed by a conscious observer, which you are, which I am, that we all are, it actually turned into a particle. And so the mere act of taking a conscious observer away or putting one in changed the results of what was going on. Now, I don't want to be confusing with the wording or the jargon here, so I'm going to keep it very, very basic. Essentially, when I say wave, we're talking about energy, we're talking about potential, and when we're talking about particle, we're talking more about something becoming more physical, more matter. In more recent times, you can look at people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, who likes to say, are you being more wave or more particle? In his work, he tries to get you to be more wave, more potential, so that you can then allow more of the good things to come in, more healing, more things like that, whereas most people identify more with the physical world rather than the energetic or inner world. So when you think wave, think inner, kind of spiritual world, kind of energy. Particle is more physical. So that's all that means. Another experiment that really showed that this was the case, this whole idea of a conscious observer will change the interference pattern, will change if something is a wave or a particle, that we have a huge influence through our observation and other things in influencing reality, was the double slit experiment. And this experiment has been done over and over again, proving the same thing over and over again, that when you bring in a conscious observer, you collapse the wave function, you collapse the wave into a particle. When there is no conscious observer, it remains potential. It remains a wave. And this is significant because these subatomic particles, I think they use photons in the double slit experiment. Essentially, these things build up what makes you and makes all of this physical reality around you. So if you can, at that level, change the results, change what's going on just via observation, what can you do with the reality that's made up of those same subatomic particles? And essentially, one thing this means is that those subatomic particles do not exist. They're waves. They're not that yet until they are observed. They do not exist as a subatomic particle. They do not exist as a particle until they are observed by a conscious observer. And then it begs the question, how are you observing them? What intention are you putting in when you observe them? If you are the one collapsing the wave function, if you're the one collapsing the wave that's creating your reality, in what way are you collapsing that wave, and into what kind of subatomic particles, or how are you gathering those subatomic particles? Essentially, what are you building or attracting in your life through your observation? So it really begs the question, if that's the case, how much influence can we have over reality through using certain methods and techniques in order to, create the physical that we want through observing in very different ways? And this includes things like visualization. This includes other things we're going to get into. But this is stuff that secret societies, people in the past, very few of them, mind you, like royalty and people in the know who were given this information, they were aware of and they utilized. And the science, and if you really look at the science, the cutting edge science, it really backs up that this is the case. There are really no uncaused events in the universe, as the law of cause and effect is always in play, and the way you look at things is absolutely a cause that produces certain effects. And so if at the subatomic level we can use observation in order to shift what happens, to take the potential and turn it into something concrete, can we more intentionally use this process again to create that which we want? And even in the words of Nick Herbert, he says, everything we touch turns to matter. And that includes what we touch via our sight. Our sight is actually a subtle form of touch. If you don't believe me, stare at an animal and kind of send it energy when you get a chance, and you'll find that it absolutely feels your presence. In fact, I know here there's always this bird I'm trying to get a good picture of, and it's so hard to get close to it because it always knows when I'm looking at it. Even when its back is turned and it will run away from me, I'll put a picture up because this is the best picture I could get. I had to really zoom in to get that. But your vision, your sight, is actually a subtle form of touch. Now, before we do move on to the next section, I do want to give you a quote from the book called The Awesome Science of Luck, which is by Peter Ragnar, which I can't recommend enough. Peter's, I don't think, as mainstream. I think it's intentional. I don't think he really aims to be. But he's gotten phenomenal results, and he talks about this in the book. And I'm just going to read you a quote here. And he says, numerous studies of very sensitive individuals have revealed that their bodies emit high levels of electromagnetic energy and infrared emissions. Dr. William Tiller of Stanford University states, the human body is not just a chemical and electrical machine. The human body is a light machine. And when you think of light, just remember light is energy. What is it that excites an atom? It is an emitted photon. If we are light machines, as Dr. Tiller suggests, then we possess the ability to alter matter and circumstance. Therefore, the more light you can emit, the more successful you will become. The smallest measurement of the energy contained in ultraviolet light is 1 electron volt. These are described as joules. Humans put out around 10 joules per second. As you and I increase the power of our intention and consciousness, we build a lens through which we can focus and concentrate our photons of ultraviolet light upon objects and events and influence their outcome. And this is in line with the double slit experiment and how much effect we have as an observer of the works of all the quantum physicists like Niels Bohr. We can look at Werner Heisenberg, and there's so many others as well. Essentially, the more light that we emit, which is, again, we can do it in energy. Light is energy. It's a very high rate of vibration. And if we look at things in a very particular way and we increase the light, which is higher levels of consciousness and everything else, the more we can influence reality. And don't worry, I'm going to go into this deeper so you know how to do it. But I just wanted to give you this kind of foundation to know where we're coming from in this video. So now I'm going to give you some things that reality creators are doing consistently and understand, so you kind of know where to go in order to improve your abilities in reality creation. Now, the trick of the matter is you're always creating reality, but the thing is most people are creating it in the ways that they don't want. Like mentioned in the previous section about how the more light you can emit, the more powerful this you become. Most people are not emitting that much light at all. They're more particle than wave. They're more dense and really embedded in the physical rather than honoring the inner, the energetic, the spiritual, which represents the light as well. And so they don't produce much of what they want at all. They're kind of being swayed and thrown around by life, thinking they have no influence, which then really causes them not to have much influence because they're not really stepping in to their abilities. But right now I want to give you some of the things that reality creators who are very powerful that I've observed it in myself. When I do these things get a lot better. In clients who've gone on and done this incredibly successfully, looking throughout history at people who were incredibly successful. And again, by successful, I mean living the lives they wanted to live, whether it was a massive mission they were able to accomplish and that would lit their heart up, whether it was just, like I mentioned, Peter Wagner, for him, it's living in the mountains and living in a very peaceful, abundant way, it seems, at least from kind of how he works. He doesn't really, I think, like to be in the public eye so much anymore, right? So it's different for everybody, but ultimately they all do these things. The first is they understand cause and effect at a very deep level. When you understand cause and effect is more than just the physical, and I've gone over this so many times. In fact, it is being able to produce those causes of emitting more light, of being more intentional with the way you observe, and observing not just on the physical plane, again, through sight, but also through your inner sight, also through your energetic sight, we can call it. They all master this because they're aware that everything in their life is simply an effect of a cause. They're aware that the more light that they emit towards something, the more it builds in their life, the more it comes about. It seems more and more good things start to happen for them, more and more success starts to come in more easily and effortlessly. And this is, again, things that people in these societies absolutely know about. People who were in the inner circles of certain groups and of royalty and all this, they understand that it's more than just the physical when it comes to cause and effect, that the whole universe is governed by cause and effect, not just from a Newtonian billiard ball perspective, but in the way we talked about earlier in the video with Niels Bohr, where he saw the interconnectivity of things beyond just the atomic level. Another thing that reality creators understand when it comes to cause and effect, because even if you learn this at deeper levels, so let's say you understand, okay, it's happening on 3 planes of existence for the most part, spiritual, mental, and physical. Most people only focus on the physical, which is about 0.00001% of reality, but that's where people put their attention, which is why they get poor results. And the energy, empty space, the spiritual and mental makes up that 99.9+% of how things are working, how things are formed. Even if you understand that, you also need to understand that you're in what we could call always in process, in infinite action. And this is something also taught within these societies. This is also taught to people who are in the know. They pass it down to their children. They help them understand that, guess what? You are in infinite action. Cause and effect is always in play, meaning at every moment you are influencing cause and effect. It doesn't matter if you're unaware of it. It doesn't matter if you're doing it unconsciously. You are always sending out a transmission that is creating certain causes, that is producing certain effects. Your transmission is influenced by those effects. And so it is so paramount to get control of this, to be intentional with this, to know how to emit light, know how to do these things, and to actually do them, because you're in infinite action. It's represented by the circle. It is continuous. It is the continuous cycle and process of life that never ends. There is no point, I say this all the time, where you can just say to the universe, hey, I want to turn off my transmitter and receiver. Can we just turn it off for an hour? Because I just want to think about stupid things. I just want to, really send out crap, but I don't want to actually send it out and really deal with the consequence of that. So can I just turn it off? And the answer is no. You are in infinite action. You are infinitely, always, at all times, transmitting out. And those transmissions are causing certain effects. It is really influencing what you are receiving. It is influencing the causes you're going to produce moving forward. And why it is so crucial to be, again, this is not something you can just do for 30 minutes a day. And again, I'm not saying that to make this harder than it needs to be. In fact, the great thing about this is when you get this works in your favor. Sure, when you haven't been aware of this, it's a bit of an uphill battle because you may have really been sending out a transmission you haven't wanted, and you've developed certain habits and neural pathways, but it is worth doing the work, being consistent to reversing that. Because guess what? When you do that the other way, on the other end of the spectrum, so you are emitting more light, you are sending out patterns subconsciously, unconsciously that are actually in favor of a good life, that are actually helping you. Well, now that becomes the thing you're sending out all the time more effortlessly. And people in these organizations, people in the know, they know how to develop this, right? And I give opportunities and things to do that too. You can join like my 6-month program where we help you to do that. We keep you in it so you rewire this completely, so you're sending out that transmission, emitting more light all the time automatically. But this is something you have to do because it is just a law. You're in infinite action. Even when you think you're doing nothing, you are still activating cause and effect. Why? Because you're still sending out thought. You're still transmitting energy. It doesn't mean you have to be taking necessarily physical action. Infinite action doesn't mean necessarily physical action. It includes it. But it also includes the mental action. It also includes the energetic action. Even when you're asleep, you're sending out a transmission, right? And so just to understand, and again, all the reality creators who are actually successful in doing this, they understand this and they play to this, and so they know the importance of working on this and getting better at this. Now, I made a video recently about cause and effect and kind of dove into it even more deeply, and I really recommend after this video you go watch it. I will link it at the end for you, so it's an additional resource, a completely free video, about 30-minute lesson that dives even deeper into cause and effect. Number 2 big thing about manipulating energy and what these people understand is they focus on prioritize the non-physical. And this is something you see so common with people who are not living the lives they want to live, of the masses. And again, a lot of it's not the fault of most people. So if you have not been honoring the non-physical more than the physical, it's not really your fault. You weren't told to do this. You weren't taught it in schools, and it was very intentional. We have been brainwashed and hypnotized to not do these things, to really put more emphasis on the particle rather than the wave and the potential. So it's not your fault, but it is no one else's responsibility other than your own to reverse this, to start new, to really claim that new future that is always available to you. That is your responsibility. And that's what this video can hopefully help you to start doing. So just understand that first and foremost. It's not your fault if you don't know these things or if you operate completely differently, because most likely your upbringing guaranteed that would be the case. But now that you're becoming aware of these things, now it is on you to learn them, to keep in them, to prioritize them. And everyone who's a master reality creator, what they say in these circles, they really, and they wire this in so much. They repeat this. They make sure that you are hearing this and applying this all the time, that it is to prioritize the non-physical. 99.999999% of reality is energy and empty space. That is where all of this comes out of, this physical realm. This is, again, those waves that have been collapsed into the particles long enough over time to create this physical realm. That's not an exact scientific description, but just to give you an idea, right? And so if you're focusing on the physical to build the physical, you're trying to be the particle, influencing the particle, you're missing out on that 99.999999%. Now, the physical is 0.000001%, so you can get a little bit of success doing that, but nowhere near, as you can imagine, what you could do, the ways in which you could do it. The effortless way, in a sense, which doesn't mean you don't put energy in, but what it means is it aligns to you and life works with you. It shows you what the best next thing for you will be because you're working with that non-physical. Now, a common question is like, well, you got to take action. Of course. I'm not saying you don't take action, but you take aligned, inspired action. If you're in a dark room, and you just kind of hustle your way through the room, and this is a massive warehouse type room with so many different obstacles, yeah, sure, you could just start running and just, blind, just trying to get out of that room. You're going to tire yourself out, and you don't even know if you're getting closer to the exit. But what if someone then shone a light? What if then, because you're coming from the non-physical, you just sit still for a moment, you don't get frantic, you don't panic, you don't go, I need to just work and hustle and all this in any direction and it will get me results, but you learn how to really do this from the non-physical. It's like getting a candle or a flashlight in that warehouse. It's like the path being illuminated, going like, here, you're gonna take a right turn, and you can't see what's beyond that right turn, but as you go around that right turn, you see what the next step is illuminated. Then the next step is illuminated. That's the difference. The person who's fumbling around in the dark may never get out of there, and a lot of times that happens. They might luck their way out of there into the next room, but then they're in another massive room that's dark and blind and everything else. And so my invitation for you is to take the one that has the path lit up. And that's what begins to happen when you honor the 99.99999%. Again, the light, honoring, emitting that light, coming from that place first. Essentially, what a lot of people in these societies are taught, and people who are successful, is that the right thinking and the right feeling will bring you to the right strategy. It's not about the strategy, it's not about the tactic. It is about tuning in, honoring that non-physical, and you will be brought to the perfect thing for you at that time. Most strategies work as long as it's the right person working them, as long as that part of the process is taken care of. Don't worry, life will bring you to what you need to see, what you need to do. And here's a huge one when it comes to doing this, when it comes to really being able to manipulate the energy in your life and not get sucked into energies outside of you that many other people want you to, and it's being calm during the storm. And you will find people who are incredibly successful and understand these principles, creating reality in the ways that they want, they do this. You know, most people, I think, believe that people who are successful or living the life they want to live don't have problems or storms or chaos come up, and it's just not true. It's inevitable, that's going to happen. But the way they react is infinitely different than the way most people react. You see, when most people have chaos come up, a storm, they have a bill come in that was unexpected, they have someone leave their life, they have a tragedy happen, they react, they panic, they victimize, they do all of these different things. I mean, a lot of people are reacting every single day to just petty things, like they spilled a little bit of coffee, someone on the road wasn't driving well and they cursed at them. You know, their whole day is a day of reactions. The opposite end of the spectrum is people who are incredibly successful with creating their reality, is they stay calm in the storm. They understand that the storm is actually a very important part of the process, and they honor it. They do what we call embrace the bends in the river. Most people panic when there's a bend in the river of life. They don't know what's on the other side. It looks crazy. They have to leave something behind that was on the part of the river they were just on. Maybe they have to let go of something, and that's too crazy. There might be some rapids around that corner. They don't know what's over there. It's the unknown. But those who understand these principles and apply them, they embrace the bends in the river. They know the river is taking them ultimately where they want to go. They know the river will not lead them astray, that it just requires faith. And so when the storm comes up, they're calm. They do not hook into the craziness going on around them. They know that the physical world, the emotional and spiritual as well, are rearranging themselves to a new level of coherence and order that is going to serve them. Okay, now let's go over some tools that you can actually use to manipulate energy. Now, first and foremost, this is not some crazy sci-fi thing where you're going to blast energy from your third eye, that's physically visible, that's going to, hit something and that thing's going to blow up or something like that, right? These are actually very simple things you may have heard of. These are very simple things that work. And the goal here isn't that this might be new information for you. It might be. It might be. But information that's not utilized, and again, this is something they know in society. This is why they really exercise repetition. This is why they really, really drill the basics. Like, it's crazy when you start learning some of this stuff. They drill the basics, and that's the superpower, because they know infinite action. They're always transmitting. So what are you transmitting in this moment? Are you going crazy doing a million things, or are you focused like a laser beam on the basics, on getting these things right? So just understand that it's working these consistently that will get you the result. And so the first thing is imagination. Imagination is one of the most powerful things you have to create. Most people use negative imagination and then are confused to why they don't have the results they want. They have pretty crazy results in their life. They always fantasize about something going wrong. They do what's called catastrophizing. I know you've done it. I've done it before too, where they think of the worst thing that could happen. That's how most people are visualizing, and then bad things tend to happen. But if you reverse that, and you use the power of your imagination to basically focus on what it is you want in your mind's eye, guess what? That's sight. That is vision. That is something that you are looking at and you are observing. Again, if you think observation only happens with the physical eyes, you're kidding yourself. It happens on all planes of existence. And so in your mind's eye, if you imagine and observe certain things, this also brings into play everything we've been talking about prior to this. That is also observation and vision. If you observe certain events in your mind that you want playing out, if you do it long enough, those events will start to come in some way in your life. How they come in, it's none of your business. Don't try and control that. Give the blueprint. But in your imagination, and you give that light, and we'll go over a little technique you can do to do this. That's how you start using your power of observation to really manipulate energy. that brings this energy to you. That's how you transmit out, again, in that part of reality that's way more than the physical. Our physical sight's only going to bring so much, but that 99.999999% of reality, that's energy, that's the spiritual and mental plane, you're activating that when you imagine. Even Einstein said that imagination is the only thing that really governs this world. And I'll put the exact quote up because it's not the exact wording, but why would he say something like this, that imagination is really the truly only thing that governs this world? Because he would know more than most the power of the imagination, the power of building things in your imagination, the power of opening up your imagination to outside forces that can come in and put things in your imagination and help you build things. Nikola Tesla as well, who was one of the most famous inventors ever, really, and one of the most brilliant minds, used to build his inventions in his dreams and imagination. And a dream is kind of like your imagination as well, except when your body's more at rest and you're more in those theta and delta brainwave states, which makes it probably even more powerful. He built it always in his imagination first, and then it was very easy for him to bring it about in the physical. The power of your imagination can't be understated. It has been right under your nose this whole time. And again, infinite action, the more you use it to your benefit, the more you picture the things you actually want and give light to it, give good energy to it. You can even imagine it and have a light surrounding it as you imagine it. I actually recommend you do that. That's very powerful. It activates it more. You will be amazed at what begins to happen. I actually guarantee things will begin to happen if you do that more often than not. Your imagination is essentially your ability to manipulate energy. Where your focus goes, energy flows. That is not just some weird axiom, it's absolutely true. Your focus is not always, again, this sight. When your eyes are closed, does your focus go away? Are you not focusing on anything? No, you absolutely are. You probably have thoughts coming up. Maybe you're visualizing something. Maybe you're imagining sometimes. Sometimes your eyes could be wide open and you're daydreaming and you have no idea what you're looking at physically and you're just kind of like this. But you're imagining something, usually most people catastrophizing, like, what if my boss yells at me? What would I say? Ooh, I'd have that perfect comeback, and I'd be like, not today, boss, or whatever. Ultimately, what is happening in here? This is what is going to allow for so much to happen in your life. The inner vision, the inner observation. So here we go. How do you see yourself in your imagination? How do you see things playing out? Again, this is not just how you do in general. Moment to moment, how are you using your imagination? When an opportunity comes up, do you immediately imagine yourself messing it up? Or do you immediately imagine yourself doing everything perfectly and taking it with two hands, just grabbing that opportunity? Do you imagine good things unfolding as you go throughout your day, or do you imagine it at neutral at best or things not going well? That is such an untapped power that you have, that if you imagine things going well, you imagine things and expect good things to happen, they do start to happen. And here's the attitude ultimately to come to this all with, is to imagine and expect certain things, but be totally okay if it doesn't happen. Because if you have that huge kind of importance on it, you actually make it less likely. You're making it more about the outcome rather than kind of the inner world and the energy, right? And about how you're feeling. But if you do feel that way, if you do have that expectation, if you do see in your mind's eye, in your imagination, you surround it with light, you up your energy, you emit more light, and you see that, you increase the probability of it happening and of good things in general happening. So essentially, when you are feeling good and you are having these imaginings, you are influencing that 99.9+% of reality that I mentioned earlier. And essentially, any picture you hold in your conscious mind consistently must be acted upon by your superconscious. And if you hold it there long enough and you feel it long enough, you surround it in light, when you're putting light on it, you're going to be feeling good. You will start to see it out there in the physical world. See it in here, you'll see it out there. Now here is a very simple practice you can do to start manipulating energy, and understand there's way more advanced stuff you can do with this, but that's kind of like giving, a first grader a sixth grader test or something similar when they haven't even mastered the basics. And again, the basics will take you so far with this that you might not even care about doing what comes next. That's only if you really want to geek out on the stuff and really, go further. But let me just give you something simple you can do, and I would implore you to either keep watching this video, to use this stuff, and then we can go from there. But ultimately, what you're going to do is simply visualize a scene or a picture in your mind's eye. Now you want to get yourself to the point where you're feeling really good. And this is so crucial. You have to feel it. You have to feel good, surrounded in light. And as you're feeling good, you want to see this scene surrounded by a bright white light and really feel the energy as you do this. And then you're simply going to release it to the universe, your higher self. Actually see it kind of go from, your sacral chakra, from we'll just say around the belly button, see it kind of go up and out into the universe. And essentially that's it. And the more light you give something, really, the faster it's going to come in, the more magnetic it becomes, the more energy you're essentially giving it. And you can just do this throughout the day with your imaginings. And again, there's no limit to this. Do this all day if you want, right? It's not just doing it once and then never doing it again. Really think about what it is you want. Whatever this scene is for you, imagine it. Feel good about it, give it light, and send it to your higher self. Send it to the universe. And again, the more light you give this, the more energy you give this, the bigger that magnetism becomes for drawing more of it in. You start doing this, you're going to start manipulating the energy in your life to bring about more of the things you want. You're going to start magnetizing good things into your life. I'm telling you, I've taught people this. I show people in my program how to do this at deep levels. We have a 6-month transformation program where we basically give you the roadmap on how to do this. Again, like I gave that dark room analogy, you've probably been given like a small candle with this. If you do this, you will get some results. But in the program, we essentially go, okay, take a right here, take a left here, you're going to go here, you're going to go here. And just if you do trust the process and do the work, you're going to get the results. So if you want to check that out, I will leave that linked below. But ultimately, if you do the stuff I've gone over in this video, you're going to start really setting this process into motion. The 6-month program is for those who are ready to go. They're ready to start doing this right now, get amazing results right now, and they're tired of not getting results essentially. So if that's you, you can check that out. If not, you can just start with what we went over in this video because there's already so much here. Now, I did promise you another thing because I want you to really understand cause and effect, because the more you understand that and learn how to apply it, the more this all works. It is so important to nail in this understanding. And so I will link to this video right here. This is absolutely a free video you can go access on this incredible principle. And I give some stuff, again, that, you're going to struggle to find for free in many different places. So I'd go watch this now. It's important to apply it, but I'll see you over there if that resonates with you.